moved slowly in their travel, there was time to establish proper communications with what was strange, to absorb, to adjust oneself. Now that we are whizzed about the world, there is no time for absorbing and adjusting. Perhaps it is for this reason that the world that the traveller knows is beginning to show less and less variety. By the time we can travel at 400 miles an hour, we shall probably move over a dead uniformity, so that the bit of reality we left at one end of the journey is twin to the bit of reality we step into at the other end. Indeed, by that time there will be movement, but strictly speaking, no more travel.
So we adopted a form of travel which moves at approximate speed of a horse, really, maybe a galloping horse. And then we could actually go across the country and see it properly, and it really worked, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just the speed, we actually had the range of a horse. Because if you think about it, in like medieval England, you could probably go a distance before a horse got tired, and then you had to stop for the night. So you're kind of doing about 25, 30 miles. Yeah, maybe we should go back and explain why we did our trip. It's quite an interesting story about that. Which was primarily to find out if you could love the planet and travel at the same time. But this kind of idea that, you know, travel, I mean, I don't think we do travel now, I think we do arriving. We don't actually travel anywhere, we just arrive there.
We commute to our holidays.
Yeah, precisely. And I mean, the idea of slow travel, I mean, before driving a milk float, I haven't actually flown for 18 years because I'm scared. Because I'm a man, I've created this kind of ideological reasoning as to why I do it, in order to deflect people saying I'm just a pussy. But what I discovered through 18 years of not flying is that when you actually take ages to get somewhere, it completely changes how you feel when you arrive. And an interesting example of that is geographically. You see the landscape change. Orally, you hear the different languages, the different tones of the languages. And it's just the whole thing about the experience, that when you change the use of money, everything, the light even changes. It's just an incredibly different experience. So it was all about trying to find out a way of enjoying travel but without damaging the environment. And of course, 1958 milk floats has long since kind of used up the carbon that was used in order to create it, which is the biggest problem with cars. It's not the amount of petrol you use, but the amount of carbon that's produced in producing the thing. We were a week from leaving, and we still didn't have a milk float. We were kind of, we had this idea, Ian and I were going to write this book, and we had the title, Three Men in a Float. We didn't have a third man. And, small detail. Praz's life isn't cluttered up with a full-time job. So here I was reasonably confident that he would be up for it. So I rang up and said, Praz, fancy driving us in a milk float for a month? And, yeah. And so we kind of got to Lowestoft, and we were feeling pretty silly, really, because we had no idea how we were going to do it, if it would work. And part of our ingenious plan was not to plan anything at all, because we thought that we were going to let serendipity and coincidence be our guides, and we would rely on the kindness of the British public.
And what I didn't expect was how kind people are. Bruno was talking about kindness being one of the principles behind slowness. But people, I don't know what it is, because obviously we looked pretty daft driving into a town in a 1958 milk float. But people just came to our aid. In fact, in Salisbury, a man actually rode up to us. I don't know how he knew what we wanted. He just said, "Oh, do you want to charge at my house?" A word about conditions on a milk float. It's a bit like a hand cart, really. That's the kind of level of comfort that you have to expect. 1958 for a start. They didn't treat their milkmen well, did they?
They just some cushions to sit on.
Nothing, absolutely nothing. Bare bones, the whole thing.
But there are other huge advantages. For instance, wildlife is not frightened of you when you drive along the road in milk float. So we kind of get overtaken by rabbits. And the sounds as well, like the sounds of bird song, and like you weren't cut off from the world. And this is one of our theories. Was that if you travelled so slowly in a kind of essentially an outdoor vehicle like that, you're not leaving an impact on nature. The only kind of impact you're leaving is making people smile, because milk floats have this kind of slightly old-fashioned air about them that we can all remember them in our childhood. No matter how old we are. It's only now that you don't really see them. So I think people kind of enjoyed seeing a milk float on the road.
And the thing that struck me about it was an adventure. people spend probably as much as we spent on that float on a holiday in Thailand or somewhere in the Far East, and they do have an adventure, but we had an adventure in our own country, and that made us feel like we'd done something interesting in England.
So it really was. You want to come up with some sort of sad story to sort of dampen the uplifting nature of it, but there really wasn't one, was there?
There's only one moment of sort of sadness when we reached Land's End. Did you think we'd be happy with the shot of it? But all the way through, we were doing something unusual. Was at Land's End, they see this 6 times a day. One bloke swam here in a pool on the back of a truck. Apparently, one man was carrying a door. So you got Land's End is like the epicentre of British lunacy. It
really didn't stand out.
It's a bit disappointing, but
such an anticlimax. But that's kind of again, it was about the journey. None of us wanted to go to Land's End. No, it wasn't about arriving. It was about getting there, and it was about what would happen between leaving and getting to the end. Because you realise that we all move so fast, we don't even notice it now. It doesn't even occur to us that we're moving that quickly. And yet when you go from driving a milk float for 2 weeks and getting in a normal car, it's so insanely stressful because you cannot believe how fast everything's moving. And it makes you wonder whether the fast world is the real world. The slogan for Slow London is living life in real time. And that really nails it actually, I think, because it really changed our perception of everything.
It's interesting that Bruno was saying about you'll never be in the majority. If you live a slow life, you'll always be in the minority. But that might be so, and I'm sure it is, but actually once you slow down, you find there are an awful lot more people out there who subscribe to that way of living.
They don't just call it that.
No, exactly. And so the secret of finding more slow people is to be slow yourself.
I think it's just about, I've always equated travel with like a supermarket ready meal, in that it's quicker, cheaper and easier, but it doesn't taste as good. And it's the same with travel. It's supposed to take, if it's longer, it costs more, and it's more hassle. That's what travel's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be like an anaesthetic on a beach where you just drink too much and pretend to be celebrity. It's supposed to, when you come home, make you think, you know what, I'm going to live my life slightly differently because of what I've just done, rather than, we go back to work and start paying off the credit card. For me, I think for most people, actually, that's what they take from travel. It's when you come home, it changes the way you live. And that's when it has meaning, and that's when it isn't just a kind of anaesthetic escape.